I am TheWire. Well, I'm one of them. And if you know anything about TV at all, then you should already know that Stephen Moffat's Sherlock is one of the best shows on TV. Heck, it's one of the best shows in the history of ever. But would it interest you to know that Sherlock was not Stephen Moffat's first crack at modernizing Victorian literary icons? Oh no, his first try was something a bit more duplicitous.
You used to have some sort of an ego.
I did. It got so big it left me.
Actually, that's quite funny.
Oh, you've got no idea.
Chain yourself to the radiator and get ready to say hello to your dark side. Here's my review of the first and probably only season of Stephen Moffat's Jekyll.
You're down the rabbit hole now. Everything you think is wrong.
Our hero for today is Tom Jackman, played by James Nesbitt in a Neil Gaiman wig. He's a research scientist who researches science. It's not really important. What is important is that when we first meet him, he's introducing a girl to his family of GPS trackers, recording equipment, and 24-hour security systems, all while talking about someone's imminent arrival and the multitude of agreements they have.
Digital recorder runs for 24 hours, kept on at all times unless by prior agreement. GPS keeps a track of his movements. Afterwards, you download everything onto the computer. There's time code on both so you can correlate.
Then he straps himself into this execution chair and says goodnight as the visitor arrives. That's right, kids. We are 10 minutes in and Hyde is already very much part of the picture. No lollygagging, no fussing around with vials and test tubes and dry ice. This show knows what we came to see, and they wasted no time getting right into it. And I'll say this for Tom Jackman. At first glance, he's actually handling his problem pretty well. He and his, roommate have worked out a timeshare agreement with adjustments for unscheduled visits.
I wasn't due this evening. I owe him the time. Tell him he can have it whenever he wants, but not tomorrow.
And some strict rules of conduct for both parties.
What if he kills someone?
He won't.
Why not?
Because I'd turned myself in.
Tom's micromanaging seems to have kept everybody alive so far, but obviously there's a lot to keep track of, which is where Catherine Reimer comes in. She's played by future bionic woman Michelle Ryan, and she's a psychiatric nurse whose job is to manage the body-swapping schedules, make the tea, keep the secrets, make sure everybody's following the rules, and always dress like she's on a classy date. Actually, she's probably not paid so much for that last one, but she has a huge crush on Dr. Jackman, so maybe she wants to be ready the very instant he decides to invite her to dinner.
I wear clothes. Does he notice? Half the time.
Catherine is actually kind of cool until exactly this moment in the second episode when suddenly all of her competence goes out the window so she can display the survival instincts of a squealing blonde in a slasher film. See, she has the keys to everything in the apartment except for one box of Tom's most personal stuff. Her goal is to steal this key and go through this box. The plan she comes up with involves dosing him with amnesia juice and pulling the circuit breakers to kill those 24-hour security cameras. It's a clunky enough plan even before you remember this guy.
As long as the lights and cameras are on, you're safe. Lights out, your dinner.
And she didn't even bother buckling him into the execution chair that he was conveniently already sitting in. Even though I'm pretty sure explaining to Tom why he was waking up in the chair would be easier than dodging a psychopath in the dark. Don't get me wrong, this is an extremely well done scene and might be Hyde's finest monster moment. But even the show seems to know how devastating this is for Catherine's agency, and the character is all set to do absolutely nothing for the rest of the series. Even her crush goes nowhere when a weird red dye job can't cause the good doctor's eye to stray from his wife.
I've heard a lot about you, Mrs. Jackman. Well, I've heard bloody nothing about you, dear.
Speaking of his wife, her name is Claire. She's played by Coupling's Gina Bellman, and she is not at all amused that her husband up and moved out without a word of explanation about why. So she hires a detective to follow him and is perturbed when the pictures don't explain anything about what he's been doing.
So, I take it this explains the black van that seems to be following me everywhere.
Actually, we never discussed the colour of the van.
He is perturbed by exactly the same thing, but for different reasons. In fact, he's so curious about this that even though he's facing an imminent, scheduled ahead-of-time, unbreakable engagement of a personality change-up, he makes a detour to the detective agency to find out why, apparently, his, episodes weren't worthy of documentation. And here's where we meet my favorite non-superpowered character in the show, Private Detective Miranda Callender, as played by Mira Stahl, with the aloof cool of somebody who is commonly the smartest person in the room. She can't compete with a certain Baker Street resident. I mean, what mortal can? But her jibes at her ditzy, snarky secretary/partner/pregnant girlfriend Min.
Actually, I'm a detective too.
No, she isn't.
I'm on the cusp.
No, you're not.
It's a grey area.
Min provide some welcome comic relief to go along with their steady supply of plot-relevant information.
Do you know what the single most important fact of your life is?
I thought I did.
Have you got 5 minutes?
Yes.
Don't go anywhere.
She never comes back, and with less than 3 minutes to go before showtime, Jackman confronts Min, learns the detectives have been bribed to close up shop, and they are not the people who have been following him in the black van.
The single most important fact in your life.
Is what?
I don't own a black van.
This leads to Jackman chasing the van through the streets of London, only to run smack into a street thug of the sort that always seem to show up on TV when a main character needs to demonstrate his badassery on somebody expendable. Tom tries to leave, but the thug pulls out a knife and makes him stand against the wall just as the clock runs out.
Of my conscience, while I still have one.
Cliché, relies on the bully trope to work? Absolutely. Doesn't change the fact that this reveal kicks all kinds of ass. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the artist soon to be known as Mr. Hyde, and you only need to spend a minute or two with this guy before you know exactly why all of Tom's careful precautions just aren't going to work. And when you can take your capable, determined, resourceful hero
I have a nice side.
and then take one look at what he's up against, and all you think is, dude, you are so screwed.
But you just missed him.
That is a villain.
Here comes God!
Later, Hyde's gotten rid of the punk and drunk his weight in alcohol and found a friend who's helping him reorganize his sock drawer when suddenly the plot comes knocking.
I hope I didn't catch you in the middle of someone.
This is Benjamin, played by Patterson Joseph, doing an impression that it took me ages to pin down.
I am a stabbing robot. I will stab you.
Yeah, that's it.
Do you know who I am? Seriously, please tell me who I am.
He's the sort of money-worshipping corporate American douchebag stock character that are just so popular on British TV. He's also a complete moron. His attempt at recruiting Hyde into his Cool Kids Club involved going from cock-blocking him to threatening him with a large goon to outright saying,
I'm your owner.
to challenging him to throw the aforementioned goon through the window. Which he wanted to do anyway. The result of all this is that Hyde then fucks off in proper superhero fashion.
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can.
Benjamin does mention Robert Louis Stevenson's book for the first time, though, so this show is technically a sequel, not an adaptation, which is definitely not the direction Moffat took later when he was modernizing Sherlock, but what the hell, I'll go with it. Even if it does raise a ton of questions that are never going to be satisfactorily answered, but does allow for one flashback scene where a Brit and an Irishman both attempt to talk like Scotsmen to unintentionally hilarious result.
The strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
My wife thinks I should throw it in the fire.
Where was I? Oh yeah, Hyde gets back to the apartment, banters with Catherine, and gloats that Tom can't have sex without waking him up. Believe it or not, that is a plot point. Tom wakes up and tracks down the now-defunct detective agency's forwarding address, but watching a mailbox is boring, and Tom is taking a nap in his car when the plot comes knocking again.
Put your engine on. Try to keep up. If you're careful, I bet I shan't suspect a thing.
Turns out Miranda found a photo of the real Dr. Henry Jekyll of Edinburgh, circa 1880-something, and surprise, surprise, he looks exactly like Tom Jackman! Dun dun dun! Obviously, the only reasonable explanation is vampires. Or aliens. Or time-traveling clones powered by love. Wait, we're not watching Doctor Who, are we?
But my case is different, isn't it?
The easy explanation is that Tom is a descendant of Jekyll's, which should be impossible since, according to history, Jekyll had no kids and no recorded family. Yes, I know the obvious follow-up question. It will take them the entire show to think of it. But that's not important. What is important is that Tom, like generations before him, is powerless against the sedative powers of the slide projector and nods off right as Miranda puts a photo of his kids right up there where they can totally be seen by anybody.
I'd like to visit them now.
Miranda, because she's brilliant, notices there's something wrong and sends Min out of the room before she uses flattery to try and defuse the situation.
How often in this world does the sun rise on something completely new? And how often do we mistake a miracle for a monster?
It's a good plan. It's too bad it doesn't work. Established. Hyde is a motherfucker of the highest order. Also established, this show is amazing. See, Jackman lived in terror of his alter ego discovering that he had a wife and kids. Hyde's visit to Jackman's house, intercut with Tom's heartbroken, terrified exploration of the aftermath, is some of the most intense television I've ever seen.
Wish I could see your face, Daddy.
I know the Jekyll part of Jekyll and Hyde is by necessity the more boringer one.
My dark side likes Mary Poppins. No wonder I was bullied at school.
But Tom Jackman is trying so hard and cares so much about keeping everyone safe that it's hard not to root for him to succeed, even when his terror of his alter ego leads him to actually make his situation worse. James Nesbitt plays him as an exhausted man, always within arm's reach of just curling up in a corner and sobbing uncontrollably, but even when he's got nothing and the whole world's against him, this guy just refuses to give up. Even Hyde eventually has to respect that kind of determination. But I think you could make the case that the whole show is really Hyde's story. Over the course of 6 episodes, Mr. Billy Hyde makes the full arc from horror movie monster into a compelling character in his own right, and he does it by discovering, suddenly, and by the most painful method possible, that not all strength is physical, and that the world can throw crap at you that not even superpowers can help you deal with. Not that he's ever safe. As played by Nesbitt, this Hyde is a sexually magnetic mix of rebellious child and wild animal, and Nesbitt, knowing that there is no possible way to overplay this, cranks the acting dial to 11 and chews all of the scenery! Chews it with those big, frightening lion teeth! Rawr! It's slightly more alarming than his normal teeth! Speaking of lions, Benjamin has the genius idea of sticking somebody Tom loves into a lion cage to see if he'll turn into Hyde to save him. The good news is it works. The bad news is it works.
What's he doing? He just threw a lion over a wall. Anything he likes.
Did I forget to mention that Hyde is really ridiculously powerful on this show? When he's not climbing like Spider-Man or throwing around guys 3 times his size, Hyde's feeding off electricity, rewinding his memory, stopping his own heart, or smelling things like lying. Guess which one of those will actually be important more than once?
I'm so strong I walk through this funny little world of yours and I don't notice it. It bores me.
Still, when a character is this mysterious, his powers of transparent plot convenience are pretty easy to forgive, even when the show has him just discard 5 episodes of continuity and pull a surprise new power out of his ass just to make the ending of the show possible. Though that one came awfully close.
Got a vivid imagination, Daddy.
Time to find out if Benjamin's pitching abilities have improved any.
The most powerful creature on the planet, that's what I'm looking at. Fastest, smartest, the best. And you're British, so it's even funny.
Yeah, that doesn't work. And it turns out that Tom is actually still awake inside Hyde's head, so on his orders, Hyde grabs a goon and drives off to make him answer some questions. Okay, kids, now it's time to play the good, the bad, and the stupid.
Fantastic.
The good. This is the first time we actually see Hyde and Jekyll actually cooperating to accomplish a goal that neither of them could have done on their own. Go team. The bad. All that actually ends up getting accomplished is some random dude gets liquefied in a garbage bag. This show is so awesome. And the stupid. Why grab the random goon when Benjamin was standing right there? Not only does he probably have more information on tap than minion number whatever, he doesn't seem like the sort of guy who'd stand up to interrogation very well.
Nope, not nervous, no.
By the way, did you know that the evil of a person is directly related to the atrocity of their American accent? Which is why the only person more blandly sinister than Benjamin is this lady, Mrs. Utterson, who you know is pure malice because she sounds like this.
He's a child. Give him what he wants and he'll be ours.
In fact, she sounds like... Oh no.
You're on the starship Voyager. I'm Captain Catherine Janeway of the United Federation of Planets.
This is truly a foe beyond any of you. Get out! Get out while you still can! So she might be evil incarnate, but she's also way less interesting than this guy. Dennis Lawson is Peter Syme, Jackman's oldest and most trusted professor, boss, advisor, mentor, confidant, and friend. The scenes that these two have together get the closest to the core of what this show might be saying about what evil actually is.
You could have killed me?
Yes, and this is my good side.
I mean, Hyde will kill you 9 kinds of dead, but he will be stabbing you in the face, not the back.
That shows consideration.
Then there's Jackman's kids. They're not as bad as some child characters I've seen, and there's a lot of questions about their possible superpowers that would have probably been more important in the next season, but here all they really do is stand on their marks, look cute, and not react to any of the traumatizing stuff that happens around them. But Mama Claire is good enough for all 3 of them. It'd be difficult to call Claire a very complicated or interesting character, but I respect anyone who can go from whimpering in confusion to beating a man senseless with a wine bottle in under 30 seconds flat.
Husband, I have questions.
Now all of her questions are about how many affairs her husband's alter ego has had, which personally I think is right up there with Vicky Vale finding the unmasked Bruce Wayne in the Batcave and demanding they talk about their relationship. But the bond between husband and wife feels real. In fact, one of the show's saddest moments comes late in the season when she accepts, on conditions, the other part of her husband's personality. Such a glimmer of hope that some measure of peaceful or even happy coexistence between Jekyll and Hyde might just be possible must, of course, end in disaster. But still, Bella Swan could learn a few things from Mrs. Jekyll and Hyde about how to support a monstrous loved one without being either a complicit doormat or becoming a monster yourself.
I mean, that's so like a man, isn't it? There's always something they're not telling you. Sorry, hon, should have mentioned. I'm Dracula.
And Gina Bellman's breathy kind of cold determination does seem like it would see her through all this crap. She even gets to play Hyde in one memorably freaky dream sequence where it looks like Tom might be about to, okay, for want of a better term, fuck himself.
But don't I scrub up nice?
She's also at the center of the most face-palmingly stupid plot twist since Laura Palmer was actually killed by her father, and here's where most of my complaints about the show live. Oh, and this will be spoilers. You have been warned. And now a reenactment of Jekyll's nonsensical conspiracy backstory.
Somebody left a baby that looks exactly like Dr. Henry Jekyll from that one book in a railway station? Oh, goodness me! I know exactly what I should do. Quickly, my co-conspirators! Clone this maid from the olden days so that in 40 years he can fuck her and develop superpowers!
But ma'am, I thought it was a potion that gave Jekyll his super-duper powers.
We are absolutely sure that it is a potion. We have devoted several monies, lives, and other things looking for this potion.
But if we think it was a potion, why would we clone the maid?
Because I, the boss lady, am my own alter ego, and I know that it was love that created Hyde.
But if you know there's no potion, why are you spending millions upon millions of dollars trying to discover the Jekyll and Hyde condition when you yourself have the Jekyll and Hyde condition? Why do we even need Jackman?
Because... Look at us!
Ooh, where?
The plot is basically there just to do 2 things. One, to justify the existence of a world-spanning, massively overfunded, but functionally incompetent super company conspiracy thing that wants to use Jekyll and Hyde's advanced superhuman powers to cure cancer and rule the world or something because he's the next phase of human evolution, apparently.
Go fuck yourself.
The other is to set up for a second series that, considering this show came out in 2007 and Moffat has since moved on to much more high-profile projects, is probably never happening.
All day, every day, without killing someone? What kind of life is that?
Which is a shame, because even with the plot holes, silly lion faces, and pacing issues, this show hits it right out of the park in the only place that actually matters. Namely, as the story of Jekyll and Hyde.
I'm in your head!
I know what you think. I am what you think. Scared now, aren't you, Daddy? Scaredy, scaredy, Daddy. I'm not scared of you!
It's a man versus his dark side, his better angels versus his inner demons, the ties of civilization versus the call of the wild, compassion versus the killer instinct, proper restraint versus unquenchable appetite. All the different weaknesses and strengths and conflicting and dangerous parts that somehow, taken together, make up this complicated thing that we call a complete person. If you've ever wondered what exactly Robert Louis Stevenson tapped into that made his allegorical story so fascinating, this BBC miniseries will lay it out for you. Jekyll is one of those shows that's compelling beyond what it actually puts on screen, and it'll haunt your imagination in the best possible way.
No one's who you think they are. Haven't you learned that yet?
Learning it now.
People have different sides to them.
Thanks for watching The Idiot's Lantern. I am TheWire, and if you will excuse me, I have an appointment to keep.
Jekyll, Jekyll, hi, Jekyll, hi, hi, Jekyll, 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 hi,